Are phytoestrogens the devil or a miracle health promoter for those of you with any kind of period or menstrual or hormonal difficulties? Well, I'm going to debunk that for you today. My name is Emmanuel Urbani, and I've helped over 100 clients improve their health using back to nature and biophysics-based strategies. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe, like, tell me your thoughts. I so appreciate you for watching this. So let's break down phytoestrogens, who should avoid them, how to not go too far. Let's start with a list of common phytoestrogens. So there's different types of phytoestrogens, the most common ones being soy isoflavones, present in soy products and other compounds as well. And in general, phytoestrogens aren't just, soy, flaxseed, but also things like resveratrol, pomegranate. People even talk about yarrow promoting estrogen. And the thing is, it's not quite cut and dry. First of all, most plant phytoestrogens has very conflicting data on them, and most of the data is around soy and soy-based products. And most of the assumed benefit of soy-based product is built on the idea that they form the cornerstone of Asian diets and that Asian people in general have better health. But the cornerstone of an Asian diet, being that I have a family member married to a Japanese, is not soy, it's fish and rice, but mostly fish and seafood. That is a huge cornerstone of an Asian diet, along with organs and all of these things that most of us wouldn't even think of eating. So, traditionally prepared soy products are a condiment. Anyways, back to phytoestrogens. The other thing is that if you have endometriosis, adenomyosis, or really painful periods, should you avoid these phytoestrogens? And the answer is you should avoid certain compounds known to promote estrogen receptor activity. Primarily, I'm talking about evening primrose oil. For most people, evening primrose oil might have a significant negative impact on your endometriosis, adenomyosis, and painful periods. There's also some of you where it has a beneficial impact because it's not cut and dry. The only way for you to truly find out would be to experiment. However, I would not activate for using evening primrose oil unless you've already established that it helps you, because there are much better foolproof ways of improving your periods so that way you don't need to be reliant on a supplement of any kind. I have helped many women radically change their periods in a very short period of time through a systematic approach. And at the end, by the time they're done, depending on their issue, they may need a little bit more than 3 months, but they are not dependent on herbs and supplements. They serve as a temporary strategy, and then they're able to actually restore the way their period and hormones function without taking supplements. You should not be afraid of phytoestrogens in small quantities. And that means you shouldn't be afraid of lavender essential oil in your bath, in your homemade creams, or in your favorite DIY perfume. You shouldn't be afraid of ground up lavender in a little bit of milk, in a little bit of homemade dessert, or something like that. You shouldn't be afraid of a small amount of ground flax seeds if you're using it to fluff up a recipe, say 1 tablespoon for a very large recipe. You shouldn't be afraid of consuming small amounts of traditionally prepared soy, like miso, natto, traditional soy sauce that's MSG free and fermented, other very traditional preparations of soy that is of high quality source in small quantities. And you should not definitely be afraid of consuming herbs like yarrow. The only estrogenic type, potentially, I should say, has an estrogenic activity that you definitely should avoid is dong quai. The reason being that it's a risk of promoting heavy bleeding, if you have a tendency for heavy bleeding, is too high, and it's not worth the risk, and it carries a risk of hemorrhage. But the other herbs that I advocate for, some of them do have estrogenic type activity. In fact, there's a very long list of things that have estrogenic type activity. And because phytoestrogens tend to bind to not the dominant estrogen receptor, which is alpha, but one called beta, they can have a balancing effect. But frankly, unless you're vegan, which if you know me at all, just don't even bother watching this. As a former vegan vegetarian, you ain't getting anywhere if you're vegan or vegetarian. But unless you are vegan or vegetarian, you're not going to be consuming flax seeds and any of soy in massive quantities. Don't drink soy milk. That's just a terrible idea. The key is that you need to improve your body's own detoxification system so that way you can handle the occasional phytoestrogen or the occasional toxin. Let's talk about xenoestrogens. Well, you should absolutely 100% avoid fragrances of all kinds that have a negative impact unless they're natural essential oils or specifically high quality selected ones completely free of all these compounds that have a negative impact on your hormone receptors, because they are definitely endocrine disruptors and have very dangerous side effects, because that is also very easy to avoid. It's not hard to find a nice soap that doesn't contain these things. It's not hard to find a shampoo that doesn't contain these things. It's not hard to switch out your cleaning products. It's actually quite simple and easier than you think. That you should 100% do 100% of the time. What I don't want you stressing over is the ubiquitousness of plastic. For example, don't use plastic wrap and don't use Ziploc bags, especially for warm stuff or fat-based foods. Avoid plastics, especially plastic number 1, whether they're BPA free or not. Actually, most plastics, except the common one that I don't worry about too much is number 4, when it's in yogurts, and it's a brand that I really like, and it doesn't come in glass. If it comes in glass, that's better. I would also avoid plastics when they're in milk, even cartons in milk. I would definitely buy dairy in glass because of how they pour it boiling hot into it, and because dairy doesn't have enough health benefits on its own, especially in plastic, for it to be worth the trade-off. Now, I made a video on this on social media. You should not avoid canned fish for the risk of BPA or plastic lining of the cans. You should choose the healthiest, most high quality canned fish you have access to and you can afford. But fish is worth the trade-off. I'll say it again. Seafood is worth the trade-off for plastic. Okay? It is. Your body, with a high enough redox, which you'll get from seafood, can eliminate excess problems and toxins like plastics. So it's about understanding the trade-off. The single biggest estrogenic compound in your diet is your water. You heard me. It's your water. Why? There are millions of people, probably billions, on birth control or oral estrogens or estrogen patches of some kind across the world. And this is a very, very stable form of estrogen called EE2. And every day, these millions of people pee out their estrogen, and that pee goes into your drinking water system, and you are drinking EE2. And this is one of the major reasons why I advocate for reverse osmosis or distilled water. It's going to be as pure as you can get. Because if you are dealing with endometriosis, adenomyosis, really bad periods, or anything like that where you have a high estrogen dominance issue, you're going to want to avoid the number 1 source of estrogen, and that's your water. A high quality filtration system like a Berkey isn't good enough. It isn't. You'd have to test it repeatedly because the filters get clogged. And there is nothing better than distilled or reverse osmosis water if that's what you're dealing with. not just for the estrogen amount, but also because reverse osmosis and distilled water, being that it's 99.9% pure, is as close to structured as you will get, unless you live in a high latitude country with low deuterium water coming straight out of a volcano, straight out of a glacier, or something like that. Then you should totally drink that. But if your water table is polluted, if your water table contains naturally occurring fluoride, then you really need to be switching to reverse osmosis or distilled water. Yes, it's dead water, which means you're going to want to revitalize it somehow. The ideal scenario would be something like a water vortexer, but you will do just fine by just adding a splash of lemon or lime and some high quality sea salt into your reverse osmosis or distilled water. And this will help you improve your mitochondrial potential on the cheap without purchasing deuterium depleted water or necessarily spending a few $100 on a vortexer. I have a vortexer and I use reverse osmosis or distilled water because I currently live somewhere where the water table contains naturally occurring fluoride, and my tap water, so whether it's filtered or not, is going to contain EE2. It's just so stable. It's really, really difficult to remove. And because the pharmaceutical companies would risk admitting major issues if they were to admit that trace amounts of pharmaceuticals actually have a negative effect on you, they're not going to admit it. But let's be frank, they definitely do. If you're here listening to this channel, you understand the certain toxicity of fluoride in your water, and for the same reason, you should understand the toxicity of leftover pharmaceuticals in your water, especially a highly stable estrogen form such as EE2. I want you to do the best that you can, but not stress. And I want you to avoid using things like evening primrose oil unless you know for sure that it works for you, because we are all unique and individual. And I don't want you to worry about things like a small amount of ground flaxseed here and there, traditionally prepared soy products that are of extremely high quality as condiments in small quantities, or lavender, something like lavender essential oil or freshly ground lavender in a homemade dessert or whatever it is that you want to put it in. Or worse yet, definitely don't want you to be considering that you want to be estrogen free, because your body should not be estrogen free at all. Even in menopause or perimenopause, you do have a small amount of estrogen that is naturally meant to be there. We actually don't know what that amount should be because we have no data on perimenopause and menopause as far as healthy hormone levels go, because the women that are being studied in the studies where we have data on hormone levels are not healthy. They're all in a high EMF world. They're all in a world full of artificial light and morbid conditions. History of potential health issues of any kind is not being controlled for. So it's really a confounded mess. I hope you found this episode useful. Please comment, like, and subscribe to my channel so you catch the next one. Thanks for watching.